My name is Naomi Ellis. I'm 34 years old, and I've worked as a physical therapist for almost 12 years. My job has taught me that people rarely tell you they're hurting. You notice it in the way they stand, the way they avoid eye contact, or how they hesitate before taking a step. I suppose that's why I should have recognized what was happening in my own home. Instead, I heard it all at once. You're just a roommate now. My husband, Daniel, didn't yell when he said it. He was standing in our kitchen, stirring sugar into his coffee as if he were commenting on the weather. We've been living separate lives for a while, he added. Let's stop pretending. I remember looking at the mug in my hand. The tea had already gone cold. The dishwasher hummed behind me. Outside, one of our neighbors was mowing his lawn. Ordinary sounds. An ordinary Tuesday. Nothing about the room matched the sentence I just heard. I asked only one question. So, what does that mean? It means we're staying in the same house until we figure things out. He shrugged. Think of us as roommates. I nodded. Not because I agreed. Because I suddenly realized something didn't fit. Daniel had been acting strangely for weeks. Longer, if I was honest. Late meetings. New passwords. Weekend errands that somehow took 4 hours. But his voice that morning wasn't guilty. It was confident. Almost relieved. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I simply carried my cold tea to the sink. What happened over the next 3 weeks completely changed how I understood my marriage. And what I eventually discovered had nothing to do with another woman. It was something much closer. Something sitting at our own family table. Before I tell you what happened, I'd like to ask you for one small favor. If you enjoy thoughtful stories about family, relationships, and the quiet moments that change everything, please take a second to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'd love to read them. Now. It all really started long before Daniel called me his roommate. At least, that's what I believe now. We had been married for 9 years. No children. Not because we didn't want them. Life simply kept giving us reasons to wait. Student loans. His career. My clinic. His father's surgery. Then my mother's illness. There was always another year ahead of us. Daniel worked as an IT systems manager for a regional logistics company. He liked routines. Every Sunday he cleaned the garage. Every Friday he ordered pizza from the same place. Every tax season he reminded me to organize our receipts, even though I'd already done it. Predictability was comforting to him. Or at least I thought it was. People often assume physical therapists spend their days exercising with athletes. Mine looked different. Most of my patients were recovering from strokes, surgeries, or accidents. Progress came slowly. Sometimes success meant someone could climb 3 stairs instead of 2. You learn patience in that profession. You also learn to notice tiny changes. A tighter grip. A slower walk. A smile that arrives half a second later than usual. Somewhere along the way, I stopped applying those observations at home. Or maybe I chose not to. Looking back, there were small things. Daniel began carrying his phone into every room. He used headphones during work calls, even when the house was empty. He laughed less. Asked fewer questions. When I talked about my patients, he listened politely but never followed up. It wasn't coldness. It was absence. Like someone had already packed part of themselves and forgotten to tell me. One evening I found unopened mail stacked neatly inside a kitchen drawer instead of beside the fruit bowl where we'd always left it. I remember thinking it was odd. Then I closed the drawer. I filed it away without another thought. Sometimes that's how important stories begin. Not with explosions. With envelopes. 3 days after Daniel called me his roommate, I reached for the Wi-Fi router to restart it after the internet briefly dropped. That's when I noticed something attached to the back of it. A small white label. It hadn't been there before. And it carried a handwritten number I had never seen in our house. I stood there for a few seconds with my hand resting on the router. The little white label wasn't anything special. It looked like the kind that comes on office supplies, the sort you buy in packs of hundreds. Someone had written 6 numbers on it with a black marker. No words. No initials. Just 6 numbers. I almost peeled it off. Instead, I left it exactly where it was. Working in rehabilitation had taught me that people reveal themselves when they believe nothing has changed. If I removed the label, Daniel might notice. So I simply restarted the router and walked away. I didn't know it then, but that tiny decision would matter more than I could have imagined. Our house wasn't large. It was a 2-story place outside Columbus, Ohio, with faded blue shutters and a maple tree that covered the front yard every fall. We'd bought it 5 years after our wedding. Daniel insisted on having a garage. I insisted on having enough windows for natural light. We both got what we wanted. At least on paper. When Daniel suggested we act like roommates, he also began behaving like one. He moved some of his clothes into the guest room. He started buying his own groceries. His laundry appeared in separate baskets. He even labeled one shelf in the refrigerator with blue painter's tape. Nothing was hostile. Everything was strangely organized. That bothered me more than if we'd been fighting. People don't usually schedule the end of a marriage. They stumble into it. Daniel seemed to have rehearsed it. The following Saturday, his younger sister, Melissa, invited us to lunch. Melissa was 32 and worked as an elementary school teacher. She had an easy laugh and a habit of fixing everyone's collars before family photos. If there was tension in the room, she usually found a way to soften it. Daniel almost declined. "I've got work." Melissa looked surprised. "On Saturday? It's complicated." She glanced at me. "You'll still come, right?" I smiled. Of course. Lunch was at their mother Evelyn's house. Evelyn was 63, recently retired from banking, and believed every family problem could be solved with enough food. She also adored Daniel. There was nothing wrong with loving your son. But over the years, I'd noticed something else. Whenever Daniel made a mistake, someone else somehow became responsible. If he forgot a birthday, he works so hard. If he canceled plans, he's under pressure. If I worked late, you really should make more time for marriage. Small comments. Easy to ignore. Until you started collecting them. Evelyn greeted me warmly enough. "Naomi, sweetheart. You look tired. I've had a busy week. You work too much." She smiled while saying it. People often mistake smiling for kindness. Sometimes it's simply habit. Daniel arrived almost 30 minutes late. No apology. No explanation. He kissed his mother's cheek before sitting beside her instead of next to me. Melissa noticed. She looked at me briefly. I looked away. Lunch moved along with ordinary conversation. School budgets. Property taxes. The weather. A neighbor's new puppy. I mostly listened. Observation had become easier than participating. At one point Evelyn reached across the table and patted Daniel's hand. "You've always carried so much responsibility." I nearly laughed. Not because it was funny. Because our mortgage came from a joint account. The insurance was in both our names. I'd spent months helping care for Daniel's father before he passed away 3 years earlier. Responsibility had never belonged to only one of us. Still, no one corrected her. After dessert, Melissa asked if I could help wash dishes. We stood side by side at the sink while voices drifted in from the living room. "You two okay?" she asked quietly. I dried a plate before answering. "I don't know." She nodded. "I've been worried." That surprised me. "Worried about what?" She hesitated. "Daniel's been different." "How?" "He doesn't tell me much anymore." That wasn't unusual. Daniel had always been private. But Melissa looked uncomfortable. "Mom says he's under stress." "And what do you think?" She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she lowered her voice. "I think he's hiding something." Before I could ask another question, Evelyn walked into the kitchen carrying an empty pie dish. "There you girls are." The conversation ended. On the drive home, Daniel barely spoke. When we pulled into the driveway, he checked his phone before turning off the engine. His expression changed for only a second. A quick glance. Almost nervous. Then he slipped the phone into his pocket. "I need to run out. It's almost 7. I won't be long." He left before I could respond. I watched his car disappear down the street. The house felt unusually quiet. I wandered into the living room and noticed something I was certain hadn't been there that morning. On the coffee table sat a plain manila folder. No address. No stamp. No return label. Just one word written neatly across the front. "Daniel." I reached toward it. Then froze. From outside, I heard the garage door beginning to open. My hand stopped inches above the folder. The garage door rumbled beneath the living room floor, followed by the familiar sound of Daniel's car rolling inside. A second later, the engine shut off. I stepped away from the coffee table. By the time he walked through the kitchen door, I was standing at the sink, rinsing a mug that was already clean. He looked tired. Or perhaps distracted. His eyes landed on the coffee table almost immediately. Then on me. "You didn't open it?" I turned around. "I didn't know it was mine." "It isn't." He picked up the folder without another word and carried it upstairs. That was all. No explanation. No attempt to hide it. No urgency. As though simply saying it wasn't mine should have settled everything. It didn't. That night I lay awake long after Daniel closed the guest room door. Our bedroom had become strangely quiet over the past few weeks. His side of the closet was half empty now. His toothbrush still sat beside mine, but only because there wasn't another bathroom upstairs. The small routines remained. The life inside them did not. Around 2 in the morning, I heard footsteps in the hallway. Not heavy. Careful. The kind people use when they don't want to wake anyone. I opened my eyes but stayed still. A minute later, the front door clicked shut. I waited. Then I got up. From the upstairs window, I watched Daniel get into his car and drive away without turning on the headlights until he reached the end of the street. I remember checking the clock. 2:14 a.m. People leave home in the middle of the night for many reasons. Emergencies. Work. Illness. But Daniel hadn't taken his laptop. The next morning, he returned carrying a paper bag from a bakery on the other side of town. "I couldn't sleep," he said. "So you drove 20 minutes for cinnamon rolls? They're better there." I nodded. Maybe they were. Still, I filed it away. At work that Monday, I found it unusually difficult to focus. My first patient was a retired firefighter recovering from knee replacement surgery. Halfway through his exercises, he smiled and said, "You always notice when I'm cheating." I laughed. It's my job. He pointed a finger toward me. Don't ever ignore your instincts. He meant the therapy session. But the sentence stayed with me all day. That evening, I came home before Daniel. The house felt unusually still. I opened the refrigerator to put away groceries and noticed one of the shelves was almost empty. The shelf marked with blue tape. D. His milk was gone. His yogurt. His leftovers. Even the bottle of hot sauce he insisted tasted better than mine. It looked less like a refrigerator shelf and more like someone preparing to leave. Yet he hadn't packed anything else. Not officially. I closed the refrigerator and noticed something taped to the family calendar hanging beside it. A receipt. I'd almost thrown it away before realizing it wasn't ours. The receipt was from a self-storage facility. 1 month rental. Unit 214. Paid in cash. No name. No address. Only the date. 3 weeks earlier. The same week Daniel had first suggested we needed space. I stared at it for a long moment. Then I heard keys in the front door. Without thinking, I removed the receipt and slipped it inside my recipe book on the counter. Daniel walked in carrying 2 grocery bags. You already shopped? I needed a few things. He nodded absently. His attention drifted toward the calendar. Only for a second. But I noticed. He walked over and stared at the empty space where the receipt had been. Did something fall off here? I kept unpacking vegetables. I don't think so. He didn't press the issue. Instead, he carried his groceries to his shelf. Only, he didn't put them away. He carried the bags upstairs. That was new. Over the next several days, little pieces stopped fitting together. Daniel began locking the guest room whenever he left for work. He'd never locked an interior door before. Packages arrived addressed only with his first name. He accepted every delivery personally. If I answered the door first, the driver would simply say, "Signature required," and Daniel somehow always appeared before I could sign. Once, I asked what he'd ordered. Computer parts. I believed him for about 5 seconds. The box was too light. One Friday evening, Melissa called. I know this is awkward, she said. But Mom asked me to invite you both to dinner next weekend. I hesitated. Will Daniel be there? He already said yes. That surprised me. Family dinners had become something he usually tried to avoid. Melissa lowered her voice. There's something else. What? Mom mentioned she's updating her estate plan. I leaned against the kitchen counter. Her will? I think so. Why are you telling me? Because she asked Daniel to come early. For what? I don't know. She paused. But when I asked, she said it was family business. Family. The word lingered after we hung up. I was family. At least I thought I still was. That evening, while taking out the trash, I noticed Daniel's car wasn't in the driveway. He'd texted that he was working late. As I wheeled the bin toward the curb, headlights turned into our street. It wasn't Daniel. It was Evelyn. She parked across from our house but didn't get out. Instead, she sat in her car, looking toward the upstairs guest room window. 5 minutes later, another vehicle pulled up behind hers. A silver sedan I had never seen before. A man stepped out carrying a slim black briefcase. Evelyn got out of her car. She greeted him with a handshake. Then, together, they walked toward my front door. Neither of them knew I was standing in the shadows beside the garage. I stayed where I was, one hand still resting on the handle of the trash bin. The porch light came on automatically as Evelyn and the man walked toward the front door. Neither of them had seen me. The man looked to be in his late 50s. Gray hair. Dark blue suit. A leather briefcase that had clearly been used for years. He carried himself the way some professionals do, carefully, without wasting movement. Evelyn knocked once. No answer. She knocked again. Then she took a key from her purse. I felt my stomach tighten. Daniel and I had given her that spare key years earlier, for emergencies. This didn't feel like one. She unlocked the door. The man followed her inside. I waited another 30 seconds before walking quietly to the porch. The front door hadn't latched completely. It was open just enough for voices to drift into the hallway. "He'll be here soon," Evelyn said. The man answered quietly. "I'd rather explain everything once everyone is present." "Everyone?" I stepped inside as softly as I could. The living room was empty. Their voices came from upstairs. Specifically, the guest room. Daniel's room. I should have called out. Instead, I stood there listening to footsteps above me. A drawer opened. Papers shuffled. The sound of a zipper. Then silence. A minute later they came back downstairs. I slipped into the kitchen before they reached the hallway. When Evelyn entered, she looked genuinely surprised. "Oh." She smiled. "Naomi. I didn't realize you were home. I finished early." The man offered a polite nod. "I'm Richard Collins." His handshake was firm but brief. "I'm an attorney." I smiled politely. "For Daniel?" There was the smallest pause. "Yes." Evelyn answered before he could. "We're just taking care of some paperwork." "What kind of paperwork?" "Oh, nothing interesting." She laughed lightly. "You know how families are." I did. That was exactly why I kept asking questions. "When is Daniel getting home?" "Soon," Evelyn said. "He asked us to meet him here." I noticed Richard glance toward her. Only for a moment. As though she had answered too quickly. Or perhaps too much. A few minutes later Daniel walked through the front door. He stopped when he saw me. His expression changed almost instantly. "You got home early." "I did." He looked toward Richard. "Everything okay?" Richard nodded. "We're finished." "Finished with what?" No one volunteered an answer. The three of them spoke near the front door while I pretended to rinse vegetables in the sink. I couldn't hear every word. Only fragments. "Next week. Need signatures. Timing matters." Then Richard left. Evelyn hugged Daniel. She barely looked at me before walking outside. The house became quiet again. Daniel loosened his tie and headed upstairs. I followed. Not immediately. Just long enough to avoid making it obvious. When I reached the guest room, the door was open. Inside, everything looked exactly the same. Except for one thing. The black folder I'd seen a few nights earlier was gone. "So," I said calmly. "Who's Richard Collins?" Daniel didn't turn around. "My attorney." "I thought we already had one for the house." "We do." "So why another one?" He folded a sweater into a suitcase. "Not packed. Just folded. As I said before, Naomi." He closed the suitcase without zipping it. "We're figuring things out. You hired a lawyer without telling me." "It's my lawyer." I waited. Sometimes silence makes people continue talking. This time it worked. "I just want everything to stay simple." "Simple for who?" He sighed. "I don't want a fight." I looked at the half-packed suitcase. Neither did I. But I had the growing feeling that someone else had already started one. Over the next week, Daniel became unusually pleasant. He cooked dinner twice. Asked about my patients. Even offered to mow the lawn. It was almost convincing. Almost. One evening, while folding towels in the laundry room, I noticed his phone vibrating on the shelf. Normally I wouldn't have looked. But the screen lit up before the vibration stopped. One message. From Mom. The preview showed only a single sentence. Don't tell Naomi until after Saturday. The screen locked before I could read anything else. I stared at the dark display. Saturday. That was the family dinner. The one Melissa had mentioned. The one connected to Evelyn's estate planning. I suddenly understood why Daniel had been so agreeable all week. He was waiting. For something. Saturday arrived with clear skies and unbearable humidity. By 4 o'clock, Daniel was dressed in a navy shirt I hadn't seen in months. He looked almost cheerful. At Evelyn's house, Melissa greeted us with her usual warm smile. But something about the room felt different. The dining table was already set. There were extra chairs. Extra place settings. And sitting quietly in the corner of the living room, beside the fireplace, was Richard Collins. The attorney. He wasn't holding a plate. He wasn't drinking coffee. His briefcase rested beside his chair. Closed. Ready. I caught Melissa's eye. She frowned slightly, almost as if she hadn't expected him either. Then Evelyn stepped into the dining room, clinked her glass with a spoon, and smiled at everyone. I have something important I'd like to share with the family. Before anyone sat down, Daniel stood up and said one sentence that made every person in the room go completely silent. I'm ready to sign. No one moved. For a moment, the only sound in the room was the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway. I had always liked that clock. Daniel's father wound it every Sunday afternoon without fail. After he passed away, Evelyn continued the routine. Some habits survive the people who started them. Others don't. Richard Collins placed his briefcase on the dining table and quietly opened the clasps. Melissa looked from him to Daniel. Sign, what? Daniel didn't answer. Evelyn folded her hands together. I know this may seem unusual, but I'd like everyone to stay calm until Richard explains everything. Her voice was steady. Prepared. This wasn't an announcement she had decided to make that morning. She had rehearsed it. Richard removed a thick stack of papers. I've been asked to assist with several legal documents related to Mrs. Harper's estate planning. Harper. Evelyn had kept her maiden name after her husband died. It suddenly struck me that I didn't know how long she'd been working with Richard. Weeks? Months? Years? He continued. Some adjustments have been made to ensure future management of certain family assets. Management. Not distribution. Interesting choice of words. Melissa raised an eyebrow. What assets? Our father's rental property, she asked. The lake cabin? The investment accounts? Richard smiled politely. We'll address each item. Daniel remained standing beside his chair. He didn't look surprised. He looked patient. As if he'd already heard every word Richard was about to say. I should have noticed sooner. I really should have. Richard handed Daniel a document. Daniel signed it almost immediately. No questions. No hesitation. Just his signature. Then Richard slid another document across the table toward Evelyn. She signed as well. Melissa looked increasingly uncomfortable. What exactly are you signing? Evelyn answered before Richard could. Just paperwork to simplify things later. Simplify for who? Melissa asked. No one responded. I noticed something then. The signature page Daniel had just finished wasn't attached to the rest of the document anymore. Richard separated it and slipped it into a different folder. Carefully. Methodically. The movement lasted only a second. Most people wouldn't have thought twice about it. I did. Years of reading patient charts had made me pay attention to paperwork. Especially when pages stopped belonging together. Dinner was served immediately afterward. As if the legal meeting had simply been another course. Roast chicken. Green beans. Mashed potatoes. Dinner rolls still warm from the oven. No one mentioned the paperwork again. Instead, Evelyn asked Melissa about school. Daniel talked about a software upgrade at work. Richard politely declined dessert and left before coffee. It was all too ordinary. Too smooth. When we were getting ready to leave, Melissa pulled me aside near the coat rack. Did you understand any of that? I shook my head. No. She glanced toward the dining room. I've never seen Mom act like this. Neither have I. Melissa lowered her voice. I asked Mom last week if she was changing the will. And? She said, not exactly. What does that mean? I don't know. She looked genuinely worried. I don't think she wants me asking questions. On the drive home, Daniel turned on the radio. Soft jazz filled the silence. I switched it off. What did you sign? He kept his eyes on the road. Estate paperwork. What kind? It doesn't concern you. That sentence landed harder than the one about roommates. It doesn't concern me. No. We're still married. For now. His tone wasn't cruel. It was factual. Almost administrative. I looked out the passenger window for the rest of the drive. Streetlights blurred across the glass. I kept replaying one image in my mind. Richard separating the signature page. It bothered me more than I could explain. Monday afternoon, I finished work earlier than expected because one of my patients had been discharged. Instead of driving home, I stopped at the small cafe across from the county courthouse. Mostly because they made decent coffee. Partly because I needed to think. As I waited for my order, someone said my name. Naomi? I turned. Richard Collins stood in line behind me. He seemed just as surprised to see me. What a coincidence, he said. It is. We exchanged polite smiles. He collected his coffee before I did. As he reached the door, he paused. There is one thing I'd like to tell you. I waited. I can't discuss my clients. I understand. But. He hesitated. People sometimes assume that signing a document means they've read it. Then he gave me a small, almost apologetic nod and walked out. I stood frozen beside the counter. The barista called my name twice before I realized my coffee was ready. That evening, I couldn't stop thinking about Richard's sentence. People assume they've read it. Not everyone actually has. When I got home, Daniel wasn't there. His car was gone. The house felt unusually still. Without quite knowing why, I walked into the home office and opened the filing cabinet where we kept old mortgage records, insurance policies, and tax returns. Most folders were exactly where I'd left them. Until I reached the section labeled property. It was nearly empty. The deed to our house was gone. The refinancing papers were gone. Even the folder containing our original closing documents had disappeared. Only one item remained at the back of the drawer. A folded receipt from the county records office. Stamped 4 days earlier. And across the bottom, in blue ink, someone had written a document reference number. I stared at it for several seconds. Then I did something I had never done during our marriage. I took out my phone. And I decided that first thing the next morning, before work, I was going to the county records office to find out exactly what had been filed. I barely slept that night. Not because I was afraid. Because my mind refused to stop organizing details. The label on the Wi-Fi router. The storage unit receipt. The attorney. The missing property file. Richard's strange comment about people signing documents they hadn't actually read. Individually, each one could have meant nothing. Together, they formed a pattern. I just couldn't see the picture yet. At 7:30 the next morning, I parked outside the Franklin County Records office before heading to the clinic. The building wasn't impressive. Beige brick. Fluorescent lights. Plastic chairs that had probably been there for 20 years. Government buildings always reminded me of hospital waiting rooms. Quiet. Orderly. Full of people carrying concerns they hoped paperwork could solve. A clerk with silver-framed glasses smiled as I approached. "How can I help you?" I slid the folded receipt across the counter. "I'd like to look up this document number." She typed for a few moments. Then stopped. "I'm sorry." Her expression changed slightly. "This record isn't available through public access." "Why not?" "It's been temporarily restricted." "Restricted?" She nodded. "There are a few situations where that happens." "Can you tell me what kind of document it is?" She hesitated. "I can only confirm that it's related to real property." "Real property?" My pulse quickened. "Our house?" "I'm sorry. I can't discuss the contents." I thanked her anyway. People working behind counters don't create the rules. They simply live with them. As I turned to leave, another voice spoke behind me. "Naomi?" I recognized Melissa immediately. She looked just as surprised to see me. "What are you doing here?" she asked. "I could ask you the same thing." She held up a manila envelope. "I needed copies of Dad's death certificate." She studied my face for a second. "You look worried." I considered telling her everything. Instead, I asked a different question. "Did your mom ever mention changing anything about the house?" "Our house?" "No. Her properties." Melissa frowned. "Actually." She looked toward the lobby before lowering her voice. "A few months ago she asked me whether I'd ever thought about buying Dad's lake cabin. And I told her I couldn't afford it." "What did she say?" She smiled and said, "Maybe you won't have to." I remembered that sentence all the way to work. "Maybe you won't have to." That didn't sound like normal estate planning. By lunchtime I still couldn't focus. One of my patients noticed. Mrs. Alvarez was recovering from shoulder surgery and had become one of those people who somehow noticed everything. "You've counted the same exercise bands 3 times, she said gently. I smiled. "Have I? You usually don't miss things." "No. I don't." She nodded toward the window. "My husband used to say that when something doesn't make sense, stop looking at what people are saying. What should you look at? What they're preparing for." The sentence lingered long after she left. Preparing for. Not saying. Preparing. That evening I went home with fresh eyes. Instead of looking at Daniel, I looked at the house. The garage shelves had been cleared on one side. His old golf clubs were missing. The spare bedroom closet was almost empty. 3 storage bins I'd seen for years had disappeared. He wasn't planning. He'd already been moving things. Slowly. Quietly. So I walked through the rest of the house. Not searching. Observing. The linen closet. The pantry. The office. The basement. Everything appeared normal until I reached the utility room. Behind a stack of paint cans sat a cardboard box I didn't recognize. Plain brown. No markings. Inside were old household manuals, expired warranties, and folders from when we'd first bought the house. Apparently, Daniel hadn't finished sorting. Near the bottom, I found a sealed envelope from our mortgage lender. It had never been opened. The postmark was only 6 weeks old. That was unusual. Daniel always opened financial mail the day it arrived. I carefully opened the envelope. Inside was a notice confirming receipt of a request for ownership documentation. Not a loan application. Not refinancing. Ownership documentation. The request had been initiated by an attorney. Richard Collins. I read the letter twice. Then a third time. There was no explanation. Only a reference number. The same one I'd seen on the county receipt. I placed everything back exactly as I'd found it. Except for one thing. I photographed every page. For the first time since this began, I had evidence. Not proof. But evidence. Around 9 o'clock, Daniel came home carrying takeout containers. I picked up Thai. Thanks. He set one container in front of me. Pad Thai. My favorite. 6 weeks ago I would have thought it was thoughtful. Tonight it felt strategic. Halfway through dinner, he looked at me. I've been thinking. About what? I think it would be easier if one of us moved out. I set my fork down. You mean me? He didn't answer. Silence can be very specific. I've worked just as hard for this house as you have. I know. Then why would I leave? He looked almost uncomfortable. I just think it would make everything cleaner. Cleaner. Another administrative word. No emotion. No marriage. Just logistics. I nodded slowly. I'll think about it. His shoulders relaxed. He actually looked relieved. As if he believed the conversation had gone well. Later that night, after Daniel went upstairs, I sat alone in the living room. Rain tapped softly against the windows. The router blinked quietly from its shelf. Almost absent-mindedly, I turned it over again. The white label with the 6 handwritten numbers was still attached. This time, I looked more carefully. It wasn't 6 random numbers. It was formatted differently. 3 numbers. A dash. 3 more. Exactly like a storage unit number. Building 214. Unit 306. At that exact moment, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. There was no greeting. No signature. Only one sentence. If you want the truth, don't let Daniel know you found Unit 214. I read the message 3 times. Then a 4th. The sender's number wasn't saved in my contacts, and there was no profile picture. Just 10 digits and a sentence that immediately made my heart race. If you want the truth, don't let Daniel know you found Unit 214. I looked toward the staircase. The guest room door was closed. A strip of light showed beneath it. Daniel was still awake. Without replying, I took a screenshot of the message, muted the conversation, and locked my phone. I had no intention of confronting him. Not yet. The next morning, I left for work 15 minutes earlier than usual. Instead of driving toward the clinic, I followed the address printed on the storage receipt I'd photographed weeks before. The facility sat behind a chain-link fence on the edge of an industrial park. Rows of beige metal buildings stretched across the property, each marked with large black numbers. Building 214. My stomach tightened. The white label on the router hadn't been random after all. I parked across the street and watched for nearly 20 minutes. Delivery trucks came and went. A landscaper loaded equipment into a trailer. An elderly couple unlocked a unit filled with old furniture. Nothing seemed unusual. Then a silver SUV pulled through the gate. Evelyn. She parked near the middle row, stepped out with a small envelope in her hand, and unlocked a storage unit. Unit 306. The second half of the number from the router. She disappeared inside for less than 5 minutes. When she came back out, the envelope was gone. She locked the unit carefully, checked the latch twice, and drove away. I waited another 10 minutes before walking into the office. A young man behind the counter smiled. "Can I help you?" "I'm looking for a family member's unit," I said carefully. "I'm afraid I can't give out customer information." "I understand." I wasn't expecting him to. Instead, I rented the smallest storage unit they had available. The paperwork took less than 10 minutes. When he handed me the access code, I casually asked, "Busy place?" "It has been lately." He glanced toward the rows of buildings. "We've had several legal document storage rentals this summer." Legal documents. Not furniture. Not holiday decorations. Documents. That word stayed with me. I walked back outside, pretending to look for my newly assigned unit. As I passed Building 214, I noticed something I hadn't seen from the road. A security camera pointed directly toward Unit 306. Good. If anyone questioned why I was there would be a record that I hadn't touched the lock. I didn't even walk all the way to the door. Observation first. Action later. That had always been my rule. Back at the clinic, I tried to focus on my patients. It wasn't easy. Around noon, my phone rang. "Melissa. Can you meet me after work?" she asked. Her voice sounded strained. "Is everything okay? I found something in Mom's house." "What kind of something?" "A box Dad kept." My grip tightened around the phone. "What was in it?" "I don't want to say over the phone." "Is your mom home?" "No." "And Daniel?" "He doesn't know I have it." "I'll be there." We met at a quiet park a few blocks from her school. Melissa arrived carrying an old blue document box with brass corners. "I found it in the attic," she said. It was behind Christmas decorations. She opened the lid. Inside were photo albums, tax records, greeting cards, and a thick envelope labeled in neat handwriting. "Personal, gift to Naomi if necessary." I stared at it. "That's my name." Melissa nodded slowly. "I know." My hands suddenly felt cold. The handwriting. It was Dad's. Daniel's father. Frank Harper. The man who had treated me like a daughter from the day I married into the family. He'd been gone for 3 years. "I didn't even know this existed," Melissa whispered. Neither did I. The envelope had already been opened once. Not recently. Years ago, judging by the worn flap. Inside were 3 items. A handwritten letter. A photocopy of a property deed. And a cashier's check stub for $50,000. The check had never been deposited. I unfolded the letter carefully. Frank's handwriting was steady. He had written only 2 pages. Most of it spoke about family, responsibility, and fairness. Then one paragraph stopped me. "If you're reading this, it means something has happened that I hoped never would. There is one decision I made that only you were meant to know. Daniel must never be allowed to change the ownership agreement without showing you the original documents. Copies are not enough." I looked up at Melissa. She was already reading the expression on my face. "What does it mean?" "I don't know." "Not completely. But for the first time, I understood something important. Daniel hadn't been trying to hide an affair. He'd been trying to hide paperwork. Real paperwork. Legal paperwork. And whatever he had signed at Evelyn's dining table was connected to something his father had specifically warned against. I folded the letter back into the envelope. There was one final sheet I hadn't examined yet. The photocopy of the property deed. Across the bottom was a handwritten note from Frank. It wasn't addressed to Daniel or Evelyn. It was addressed to me. And the final sentence made everything else suddenly make sense. Naomi, the house was never meant to belong to Daniel alone. I read the sentence again. Then once more. The paper trembled slightly in my hands, though I couldn't tell whether it was from the breeze or from me. Naomi, the house was never meant to belong to Daniel alone. Melissa watched my face. What is it? I handed her the letter. She read silently, her eyes moving slower with each line. When she reached the end, she looked up. I've never seen this before. I believe you. She frowned. My dad wouldn't have hidden something from me unless he thought someone else would find it first. I nodded. Frank had always been deliberate. He repaired things before they broke. He labeled every file in his workshop. He backed up family photos on 3 separate hard drives because, as he liked to say, people lose memories long before they lose data. If he left that letter, he expected it to matter one day. I think we need to speak to Richard, I said. Melissa looked uncertain. Do you think he'll talk? I don't know. But I think he'll listen. Richard's office occupied the second floor of an older brick building downtown. When his receptionist asked whether we had an appointment, I almost turned around. Then Richard stepped into the lobby carrying a file. He stopped when he saw us. Mrs. Ellis. His eyes shifted to Melissa. Miss Harper. I only need 5 minutes, I said. He looked at the envelope in my hands. Something changed in his expression. Come in. His office overlooked the courthouse square. Bookshelves lined one wall. Family photographs sat neatly on another. Nothing extravagant. Just orderly. He closed the door behind us. What can I do for you? Without saying a word, I placed Frank's letter on his desk. Richard didn't touch it immediately. Instead, he adjusted his glasses and read the first page. Halfway through, he leaned back in his chair. I was afraid this might surface. Melissa folded her arms. You knew about it? I knew Frank wrote a private letter. You never told us. It wasn't mine to reveal. I took a slow breath. I need one question answered. He met my eyes. Did Daniel sign documents that changed ownership of my house? Richard chose his next words carefully. He signed documents he believed would allow certain property interests to be transferred. Believed? He did not read every document. The same warning. People assume they've read it. Not everyone actually has. So what did he actually sign? I can't disclose privileged communications. I expected that answer. Instead of arguing, I reached into my bag and placed the photocopy of the deed beside Frank's letter. Richard looked down. For the first time since I'd met him, he appeared genuinely unsettled. This copy, he said quietly. Where did you find it? In Frank's box. He nodded slowly. I see. Silence filled the room. Finally, he spoke again. Frank created a survivorship agreement years before his death. Melissa frowned. A what? He wanted to ensure the family home couldn't be sold, transferred, or refinanced without the knowledge of both legal beneficiaries. I stared at him. Both? Yes. He looked directly at me. You. And Daniel. The room suddenly felt very quiet. So Daniel couldn't legally remove me? Not under the original agreement. Then why all the paperwork? Richard exhaled. Because someone believed the original agreement no longer existed. Someone. He hadn't said Daniel. He hadn't said Evelyn. Just, someone. I understood why. He was still protecting client confidentiality. But his wording mattered. Every word mattered. Melissa spoke next. My mom knew, didn't she? Richard didn't answer. He didn't have to. That evening, I returned home before Daniel. For the first time in weeks, I wasn't confused. I was calm. I gathered every document I'd collected. The storage receipt. The county reference number. The mortgage notice. Frank's letter. The deed copy. Photographs of every page. I arranged them neatly across the dining room table. Not as accusations. As evidence. At 6:15, Daniel walked through the front door. He stopped immediately. His eyes moved across the papers. Then settled on Frank's handwriting. Color drained from his face. Where did you get that? I think you already know. He took one step toward the table. I quietly placed my hand over the documents. I wouldn't. He froze. For several long seconds neither of us spoke. Finally he whispered. This isn't what you think. I looked at him steadily. Then explain it. He opened his mouth. Closed it. Looked toward the window. Toward the hallway. Anywhere but at me. Then he said something I never expected. I wasn't trying to steal the house. I waited. He swallowed hard. I was trying to stop my mother from taking it. The sentence hung between us. It fit none of the story I'd been building. And yet, for the first time in weeks, it explained why Daniel had looked frightened instead of triumphant. It explained why he'd hired an attorney. Why he'd moved documents. Why he'd never actually asked me to sign anything. I realized I might have been looking at the wrong person all along. But before I could ask another question, someone unlocked the front door with the spare key. Evelyn stepped inside. She looked from Daniel to the papers spread across the table. Then her eyes landed on Frank's letter. For the first time since I'd known her, she stopped smiling. Evelyn didn't say a word. She closed the front door quietly behind her and stood in the entryway, one hand still resting on the doorknob. Her eyes never left the letter. Then she looked at Daniel. You found it. It wasn't a question. Daniel shook his head. Naomi did. Evelyn slowly set her purse on the console table. I hoped that box had been thrown away years ago. I glanced at Daniel. His expression told me this was the first time he had heard that sentence, too. I spoke before either of them could. Frank wanted me to have this. I know. You knew? She nodded once. I knew he wrote it. Did you read it? No. Her answer came quickly. Too quickly. I couldn't tell whether it was true. The room settled into an uneasy silence. Rain had started again outside. Water tapped softly against the kitchen window, and the refrigerator hummed in the background. Ordinary sounds. Nothing about the moment felt ordinary. Daniel pulled out a dining chair but didn't sit. Mom, he said quietly, tell her. Evelyn looked at him with tired eyes. I don't think that helps anyone. It helps the truth. She gave a small, humorless smile. Truth has a way of hurting everyone. I had heard enough careful answers. I opened the folder containing every document I'd collected and slid the mortgage notice across the table. Richard requested ownership records. Neither of them spoke. I placed the county receipt beside it. The property file disappeared from our cabinet. Still nothing. Then I unfolded Frank's letter. He specifically wrote that Daniel couldn't change ownership without the original agreement. I looked directly at Evelyn. So why were you trying to? For the first time, her composure cracked. I wasn't trying to take your home. No. No. She lowered herself into a chair. Slowly. As though she had suddenly become much older. I was trying to protect mine. I frowned. What does that mean? She folded her hands together. After your father-in-law died, I made a terrible financial decision. Daniel closed his eyes. You borrowed against the lake cabin. She nodded. To help your cousin's business. I know. You knew? I asked. Daniel looked at me. I found out 8 months ago. My mind raced. 8 months. Long before he called me a roommate. Long before the lawyer. Long before the storage unit. Evelyn continued. The business failed. How much? Daniel asked quietly. She looked down. Almost $400,000. The number settled heavily over the room. I couldn't repay it. So you needed collateral, I said. She nodded. The lender wanted additional security. And the house? She closed her eyes for a moment. They believed Frank's old property arrangements could be changed. With Daniel's signature. Yes. I looked at Daniel. Why didn't you tell me? I was trying to fix it before it reached you. By calling me your roommate? His shoulders dropped. I knew if I told you everything, you'd refuse to leave. I wasn't planning to leave. I know. He paused. They wanted the appearance of separation. The sentence hit me harder than I expected. The appearance? If we looked like we were separating, it would be easier to argue that the property arrangements should be updated. I stared at him. So the guest room was part of it. The separate groceries? I was trying to make it believable. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny. Because the plan was so painfully misguided. You hurt me to protect paperwork. I know. I'm sorry. There wasn't a defense in his voice. Only regret. I believed he meant it. That didn't erase what had happened. But it mattered. I turned back to Evelyn. Did you ever intend to tell me? Tears filled her eyes. I kept telling myself I'd fix it first. Did you? No. She shook her head. I only made it worse. The next morning, Richard arranged a meeting with everyone at his office. This time there were no hidden folders. No separate signature pages. Every document was placed on the conference table where everyone could read it. Line by line. Page by page. Frank's original survivorship agreement was still legally valid. It had never been revoked. The documents Daniel had signed at Evelyn's request had not transferred ownership because they conflicted with the earlier recorded agreement. The county had flagged the filing for review. That was why the record had been temporarily restricted. Nothing had changed. Legally, the house remained exactly as Frank intended. Richard closed the final folder. The property cannot be transferred under these circumstances. He looked toward Evelyn. The remaining financial matters will need to be resolved separately. She nodded. I understand. There was no argument. No raised voices. Only consequences. Over the following months, Evelyn sold the lake cabin voluntarily and worked with the lender to settle the debt. It wasn't easy. But it was honest. Melissa helped organize the paperwork. Daniel attended every meeting. And I attended only the ones where my signature was actually required. For the first time in weeks. No one asked me to trust them. They simply showed me the documents. That made all the difference. One evening, as I filed the final settlement papers into a new folder at home, I realized something I hadn't admitted to myself before. The greatest damage hadn't come from money. It had come from silence. And some kinds of silence take much longer to repair. By early spring, the house felt different. Not because we had painted the walls or bought new furniture. Because the tension had finally left the rooms. The guest room was no longer Daniel's room. It became a guest room again. His clothes returned to our bedroom one drawer at a time. Not after one dramatic conversation, but after dozens of ordinary ones. That seemed more honest. Healing rarely happens all at once. At work, my patients often asked how long recovery would take. I always gave them the same answer. It depends on whether you're willing to do the work. I realized marriage wasn't very different. Trust isn't rebuilt with apologies. It's rebuilt through consistent choices. Daniel understood that. He stopped asking me to simply believe him. Instead, he included me in everything. Every financial statement. Every insurance renewal. Every meeting with our attorney. Every decision involving the house. Sometimes transparency looks surprisingly ordinary. An open folder on the kitchen table. A password written down instead of hidden. A question asked before a decision is made. I noticed all of it. Old habits die slowly. Mine included paying attention. One Saturday morning, Melissa came over carrying a box of family photographs she'd found while helping Evelyn clean the attic. We spent hours sitting on the living room floor. There were pictures from birthdays, camping trips, anniversaries, and holidays I had almost forgotten. Then Melissa handed me one photograph. Frank stood beside me in our front yard on the day Daniel and I bought the house. I remembered that afternoon immediately. Frank had pulled me aside while everyone else was carrying boxes inside. He had smiled and said, "A home belongs to the people who protect it." At the time, I thought he was talking about fixing broken pipes or replacing the roof. Now I understood he meant something much larger. Sometimes protecting a home means protecting the truth inside it. A few weeks later, Evelyn invited us to dinner. For a moment, I considered declining. Then I remembered something my profession had taught me years earlier. Avoiding difficult movement only makes recovery take longer. When we arrived, the dining room looked familiar. The same wooden table. The same grandfather clock ticking in the hallway. The same collection of family recipes spread across the counter. But one thing had changed. Before dinner, Evelyn placed a folder in the middle of the table. "I'd like everyone to read this." Inside was her updated estate plan. Every page. Every signature. Every beneficiary. Nothing hidden. Nothing prepared in another room. Nothing waiting to be explained later. She looked at Melissa first. Then at me. "I don't expect immediate forgiveness." She folded her hands quietly. "But I won't ask either of you to trust paperwork you haven't read." No one spoke for several seconds. Then Melissa smiled faintly. "I think Dad would have liked that." Evelyn nodded, her eyes filling with tears she didn't try to hide. "So do I." Life slowly returned to ordinary routines. Daniel and I still had disagreements. Laundry still piled up. Coffee still grew cold while I answered work emails. The maple tree still covered our front yard with leaves every autumn. Ordinary life hadn't become perfect. It had become honest. One evening, nearly a year after Daniel called me his roommate, we were sitting on the back porch watching the sun disappear behind the neighboring houses. He looked at me and said quietly, I almost lost the best thing in my life because I thought protecting you meant keeping secrets. I reached for his hand. No. He looked at me. You almost lost it because you forgot that partners don't carry burdens alone. He nodded. I won't make that mistake again. For the first time in a long while, I believed him. Not because of his words. Because of everything he had done since saying them. I've replayed those weeks more times than I can count. People often ask what finally saved our marriage. They expect me to say love. Or forgiveness. Or patience. Those mattered. But they weren't the beginning. The beginning was the moment I stopped accepting vague answers and started paying attention to facts. That's the thing about families. Love is important. Trust is precious. But truth is what allows both of them to survive. And whenever I reset our Wi-Fi router now, I smile at the clean plastic surface where that little white label used to be. It reminds me that the smallest details can change the course of an entire life, if you're willing to notice them.